Yesterday, Police Minister Fikile Mbalula held a press conference updating part of what has been achieved, according to the plan he laid out when he took office last year. Outlining some of the decisions taken in the SAPS, he said these have been part of his broader strategic intervention towards stabilising his portfolio. These range from the commitment to deal with crime, the appointment of General Sitole as police commissioner after the removal of Kgomotso Phahlane, who acted in that position, and of course the removal of Berning Ntlemeza as the head of Hawks. Now, he also made a big announcement with regard to the removal of Richard Mdluli, the head of crime intelligence, who was suspended in 2011 and has been for many years in suspension. We're now joined by SAPS spokesperson Vuyo Mhaga to talk a little bit more about it. Good to have you, Vuyo. Thanks so much for being with us.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right. The minister not making it this morning, unfortunately?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's part of the police work. He had to go and brief, some leaders on basically the state of policing and all that. So he could not make it, unfortunately.
All right. Well, let's get into some of the issues, particularly what was raised yesterday, the dismissal of Richard Mdluli, who's been on the payroll for 7 years now. I mean, which we're talking about the fact that it's cost taxpayers so much money, and he's still going to get a pension. What has taken so long on this issue?
Well, you'll remember, Leanne, when the minister came in, I think it was around April last year, one of the things that he said that we need to have a permanent head of crime intelligence if we have to have, an intelligence-led policing. So he has been grappling with the matter to make sure that we put it to rest, and so that we are able to get a permanent head of crime intelligence to bring about stability in that unit. You'll know that there have been a lot of issues that have been raised by the Auditor General, by the Parliament, insofar as crime intelligence. So really there was a need to basically conclude to that. There's been in and offs of the issues of General Mdluli from the 29th of April 2011, you have said, and there will be other cases that will have actually been facing. Other issues were taken by the NPA, which are still running their own process. There were issues that were within. And some of the people who were really heading, the hearings will have obviously been appointed in the Marikana issue. So there will have been a change of personnel. Obviously, whoever that comes in must be briefed. So that will have obviously taken its own delay. But when the minister came in, he said we need to make sure that we actually guide the people of South Africa. And part of that, of proactive policing, you need to make sure that you've got the head of crime intelligence in place. So basically, yesterday was the close of that chapter. Yeah.
So, I mean, what we're seeing is according to an explanation, Mdluli was actually given two options. He was either given the option to stay on, to come back, I beg your pardon, or to take an early leave, and he chose the latter with all of the benefits that comes with that. And do you think that this is fair, those two options laid on the table for him? Obviously, he still has to face the criminal one, the charge that's facing him.
Well, they're within, the ambits of our laws, the prescripts of those particular options. What is in the center for us is really to make sure that there's stability there. We've been complaining about a lack of stability in the crime intelligence. So we think in the broader scheme of things, that will have been the best option for the entire South Africans generally, to make sure that we've got an intelligence-led policing with a stability in that particular unit. And I think now we have closed that particular chapter. We need to get the permanent head and to make sure that we do our job to protect South Africans and their property.
I mean, let's move on to Berning Ntlemeza, because last year, obviously, the police minister removed him from that position. Even though this wasn't an appointment of Minister Fikile Mbalula, it certainly does appear that these positions seem to attract the worst individuals to be in there. These are the guys that we should be looking up to, that should be full of integrity, and yet it seems that every single one of them that move into this position are tainted, and they just walk in there with allegations of corruption and crime against them.
Well, that's why I think first the appointment of General Sitole was to basically to bring a new perspective in the police. And secondly, yesterday the minister said we'll have a panel of experts. Anyone who thinks is fit and proper to be the head of the Hawks must come forward to make sure that we get these people of integrity that we are looking for. So the net is wide open for anyone who's really passionate about fighting crime in South Africa and obviously does qualify, must actually be there. So hopefully, going forward, really we're putting that past that issues of having people who've got, those kind of issues behind us, and we make sure that we stabilize and professionalize the South African Police Service.
The Hawks, let's move on to them, because there's busy with appointments now for a permanent head of the Hawks, but there was also the case regarding the current acting head that's still pending, and that's, of course, Yolisa Matakato, who's been reported to the IPID for interfering in a fraud case. What's happening with this case?
No, we normally leave that to IPID to basically, to do their work. From now and again, the executive director there, Mr. McBride, will brief the minister generally of what's basically happening. So that one is going through its own course. As we're saying that where we are now, we are looking to make sure that we've got a permanent head there.
Yeah. Is this not concerning? I mean, every head of every institution, and I've asked you this question before, but again, as I go down the list and we speak about every single justice institution, an institution that should be held with integrity, is full of bad people. And suddenly we're seeing changes now. Is this because of a change of guard at the top of the ANC?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, I think if you've been following, the minister has been actually quite stressful of that we need men and women of integrity in the SAPS, because that's what we'll really need. Obviously, the change of guard will have came with goodwill, that further prompts the work, but that's what we've been actually focusing on, the bouncing ball, to make sure that SAPS comes back and becomes professional.
Yeah, but it all takes too much time, and I know that there are processes involved, but I mean, if you look at the Hawks, for instance, and the investigation into state capture, they have been accused, and severely so, of dragging their feet when it comes to those that have been implicated at government level, those that, particularly politicians that have been fingered, and yet the Hawks have been very, very slow. We heard from them for the first time this year, and yet internationally it's been making headlines, and an investigation seems further along there. Have the Hawks concerned you with their investigation into this? No,
the Hawks have been investigating, and I think at some point they came and said, no, we're actually investigating the matters. One of the things that I think post the Polokwane conference of the ANC, the view was that you might not need to go through the Hollywood style, of investigating, where you're going to bring people on cameras and all that. The work gets basically happening. Get a case watertight and make sure that you send a credible, a case to the NPA that can be able to be prosecuted. So you don't want to get a situation where you really tarnish people's names without actually making sure that you've got a watertight case. So there's been work that has been done by the Hawks, and basically that work is emanating, to these results that we're talking about. So it's not an issue that it happened yesterday. Surely it's the work that has been done. Now it's ready to go for prosecution.
All right, let's leave it there. Thanks for coming in and talking to us. This is police spokesperson Vuyo Mhaga updating us on some of the big projects with regards to what the minister calls a strategic intervention in an organisation that has been plagued with a bad reputation, also making big announcements regarding the removal of Richard Mdluli, who has been on suspension for a very long time. All right, we take a break.